Hello again, another one to share with you. Hopefully the dogs won't disturb us too much, but they've just come back from their walk, but they can't get in. But now it's raining and it's dripping outside, so I do apologise for the extraneous noises that you hear on these videos. I'll come a bit closer and try and speak a bit louder so that they don't spoil too much, okay? There you go, there's one of them trying a door. Hopefully they won't get in. I've just finished explaining about the fact that, as far as I'm concerned, the Manitou County Sheriff's Department couldn't care less about people. They just couldn't care less about the general public. They are only interested in, as the dude would call it, CYOA. Cover your own ass. Let's see if we can get that a bit bigger. It wasn't going to be too long before we got an article by John Farrack. Obviously many of you will remember that John Farrack joined us on our original Mammothon in 2019 and has been one of the leaders, if you like, in trying to get to the bottom of what happened. He's an investigative journalist that's also written a lot of other books besides The Wrecking Crew. Now let's have a look then. Missteps hamper the 1999 hit and run death probe. Manitou County officials failed to include state assistance in probing death of teenager. I wonder why. Newton, which is very near where Cleveland Auto Salvage is, which was Robert Herman's auto salvage yard. From the start, the criminal investigation into the 1999 hit and run death of teenager Ricky Hochstetler was seriously flawed. From insufficient follow-up to the discovery of vehicle parts found near the pedestrian's killing, to the failure to seek assistance from the Wisconsin Department of Justice or the Wisconsin State Patrol, to using faulty evidence collection procedures, the missteps may have prevented the boy's killer from being brought to justice. A review by the USA Today Network Wisconsin found, shortly after Ricky, who was 17, was struck while walking home on the side of a county road, residents in rural Manitou County began finding broken vehicle parts in the snow. On the morning of the fatality, Robert Jeffrey of Newtown found parts scattered in the snow at the seldom used intersection of Center and Newton roads in rural Newton. If the fleeing driver had turned onto Center Road, the village of Cleveland was only about 5 minutes away. Several sources who had ties in this investigation suspected that the hit and run driver was probably headed toward Cleveland. But this critical clue soon fell by the wayside under the direction of Lieutenant Mike Bushman, the road deputy put in charge of the homicide by then Manitou County Sheriff Tom Kusurek. According to Bushman's report, the Newton resident was unable to tell me which direction the suspect vehicle may have went after the pieces fell off. Another major misstep occurred just 5 days after the fatality. On the day of Hochstetler's funeral, multiple car parts were visible in the thawing snow at the far edge of the victim's driveway along Manitou County CR. The boy's body was found 50 yards up the road. The parts were right up by the road, Manitou resident Sylvia Heineck Schmidt said. I just remember I was thinking, this doesn't look like it had been weathered. The parts appeared to be a section of headlight housing with letters and numbers stamped into it, Manitrock Sheriff's Deputy Jason Jost reported at the time. I also observed 3 other pieces of plastic lying just around the corner. Jost's January 15, 1999 report stated, all 4 of the parts appeared to be from a newer style car, Jost wrote. There had been no other recent collisions along the 2-lane highway around the time of her son's death, said Debbie Hochstetler, the victim's mother. Nevertheless, Bushman determined that these fresh car parts were not relevant to his investigation. I checked with Lieutenant Bushman, and due to the fact the pieces looked newer, he did not believe they belonged to the suspect vehicle on the hit-and-run fatality, Jost wrote in his 1999 report. At this time, no further follow-up will need to be done. Looking back, Schmidt said she is dumbfounded that Manitrock County dismissed the newer model car parts without a good explanation. It was probably part of the vehicle that killed Ricky, she told. A review of the Sheriff's Department case file indicated Manitrock County never explored the possibility that a car might be involved in the crime. Within hours of the overnight crash, Juvenile Detention Centre Lieutenant Rob Herman, now the county sheriff, assured Bushman that the hit-and-run vehicle was a 1985 to 1988 Chevy truck, Suburban or Blazer. Days later, Bushman speculated that the tiny pieces of broken grille found along the rural highway may also belong to a 1998 to 1991 full-size van. It seemed that every decision Herman and Bushman made put Manitrock County further away from identifying Ricky Hochstetler's killer. Within hours of the crime, Herman directed the law enforcement agency to obtain a large master vehicle registry from the state, based solely on vehicles he wanted Manitrock County to look for. UPS overnight delivered a large packet from the DOT of all 1985 to 1988 Chevrolets and 1985 to 1988 GMC trucks, Bushman wrote in his January 14, 1999 report. Contact was made with several local police administrators by phone, and a request for assistance was made. This was a recipe for disaster, the DCI discovered several years after the fact. There were numerous instances when Manitrock deputies inadvertently checked the same vehicle 3 or 4 times. This is what Bushman told the state agents in 2004. Bushman stated that the Wisconsin Department of Transportation provided the Sheriff's Department with a list of approximately 25,000 vehicles in a 5-county area that matched the description of the striking vehicle, and all of them were cleared. The DCI, however, was troubled by Manitrock County's overall investigation methods on Hochstetler's case. In reviewing the reports, many of the vehicles that were reported cleared do not have detailed descriptions of how they were cleared, Special Agent Eric Stastowski advised Bushman. This review assumes that every officer did a physical inspection of every vehicle, looking closely for signs of repair, replaced parts in areas that were damaged or could have been damaged. If each officer for each vehicle inspected did not follow that procedure, there is a possibility the striking vehicle was missed, even though there were strong suspicions that the hit-and-run driver had roots in southern Manitrock County. Given the hit-and-run driver's path of travel, Bushman and Herman's decisions kept department efforts focused elsewhere. In 1999, Bushman directed other road patrol deputies, such as Andrew Colburn, to chase leads as far away as Appleton, Fond du Lac, Green Bay, Coconut, Marinette, Menasha, Nina, Oconto, Omro, Sharano and Rawpaca. I do apologise for my pronunciation of some of those counties. I'm trying the best. The sheriff at the time, Tom Kosurik, also perpetuated the conclusions reached by Herman that the hit-and-run motorist was a late model truck or van, even though several car parts had been found in close proximity to the death scene. In one of his final actions on the case, the sheriff Kosurik informed the media he was sending some of the vehicle debris to the FBI's Washington, D.C. lab for analysis. He waited nearly a full year to do so. In March of 2000, the FBI said it was unable to determine the precise year, colour, make and model. The FBI agreed that the part submitted by the Manitowoc County may belong to an 85 or 88 Chevrolet Blazer truck or Suburban, but not a van. The FBI, however, was not notified that the grille parts found at the scene came from a broken evidence chain of custody, raising questions about their authenticity. The FBI was not aware that the sheriff's official who took possession of the grille parts at the crime scene had access to his family's scrapyard and would later be questioned by the DCI as a hit-and-run suspect himself, Robert Herman. Moreover, the FBI was not asked to examine those newer style car parts, including the headlamp that Deputy Jost recovered from the edge of the victim's driveway close to the death scene. Avenues not explored. Although immediate suspicion centred on the Club Bilmar banquet hall just up the road from the crash, Kosurik waited 45 days before suggesting that deputies find out if the club had a list of patrons on the night of the homicide. Of the roughly 1,000 pages of reports turned over to comply with a public's record request, none of the sheriff's reports addressed whether any follow-up investigation occurred surrounding the Bilmar. From the outset, Kosurik, who did not return a message from USA Today Network, didn't make it a top priority for his detectives to canvass local bars, bowling lanes or late-night diners for leads and suspects, conduct any round-the-clock surveillance near the crash site or near the rural intersection in Newton, where signs of evidence were found, inspect the salvage yards near Cleveland and Sheboygan, even though there was a strong chance the hit-and-run driver would fix or destroy his damaged vehicle to avoid suspicion, and scour the rural roads and ditches for additional vehicle debris that may trace back to the hit-and-run driver. Kosurik also let several weeks pass before volunteer firefighters were summoned to the crime scene along County CI to melt down the snow and ice. The effort yielded 126 grey grille pieces, 3 black pieces, 2 small pieces of Chevrolet emblem, 1 gold glasses frame and 1 lens, reports show. Most were very small and of no identifying quality at this point in time, Bushman stated. In 2000, Kosurik announced his retirement. Peterson became sheriff. Rob Herman was promoted to undersheriff. Bushman, who ran the unsolved Hochstetler investigation, was promoted to third in command of the sheriff's department. In the coming years, Detective James Lenk was put in charge of the cold case. Lenk took no initiative to interact with the victim's family. He was the same detective featured in Making a Murderer, accused of planting blood and a spare key to secure Stephen Avery's arrest in the death of Teresa. In January 2004, the victim's mother continued with her annual tradition of making herself available for media interviews to mark the anniversary of her son's unsolved death. She said she took this step because the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department was taking no initiative to keep the unsolved homicide in the community spotlight. After a Green Bay television station aired a 2004 story, a woman called Debbie Hochstetler at home asking if she was the person who lost her son. The woman told Debbie Hochstetler that the person who killed her son was a cop and that she gave the last name of the person as Herman. DCI reports from 2004 showed Hochstetler stated that the woman gave her a first name of Herman as well, but that she could not remember it at the time. Because obviously you've got the Rob and Todd Herman. According to the tipster, the hit-and-run vehicle ended up at the Cleveland Auto Salvage shortly after the crash and was subsequently crushed. And of course we do have a letter by Steve Avery from prison that mentions this destroying of Robert Herman's car. Cleveland Auto was a long-time family business in southern Manitowoc along County 20, operated by Bob Herman and his family. The elder Herman had worked as a traffic patrolman for Manitowoc County before retiring, and his two sons, Rob and Todd, followed in his footsteps and were hired into the Sheriff's Department by Kusurek during the 1980s. Years later, when Debbie Hochstetler brought her information to Bushman in 2004, he dismissed it, telling her Rob Herman wasn't involved in the hit and run. She said Bushman also told her that the individuals involved at Cleveland Salvage deal in more classic cars, not older trucks or vans like the one that hit her son, DCI reports show. Not long afterward, Hochstetler asked Manitowoc County for a chance to review the police reports in her son's case. Bushman and Link declined. It was explained to her that the details would be too graphic for her to deal with emotionally, DCI reports said. Debbie Hochstetler also asked about bringing an additional investigation assistance from the DCI. Lenk told her that the state would not get involved because a car was involved and it was only a hit and run case, DCI reports reflect. She said that Detective Lenk told her he checked into that already, but that he could not remember who he talked to. Ultimately, the grieving mother decided to call the DCI anyway. Hochstetler stated that she felt the Sheriff's Department has not been as cooperative with her as they were in the initial stages of the investigation. DCI reports from 2004 stated she said she hoped that her efforts and DCI's review might help prevent another victim's family from having to deal with an unsolved hit-and-run death in Manitowoc. To Debbie's surprise and dismay, Lenk never actually made a request seeking the DCI's help. Nobody at the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office made such a request during the previous 5 years, DCI documents indicate. Thanks to her persistence, Hochstetler convinced DCI Special Agent Eric Stakovitsky to explore the allegations floating around the Manitowoc community, suggesting that an off-duty sheriff's deputy may have killed her son. Hochstetler also stated that the tip she received about a police officer being involved in her son's death was not the first time she heard that kind of story, according to DCI documents. In February 2004, the Milwaukee-based special agent got permission to investigate the Manitowoc County cold case. Months later, Stokowski came to Manitowoc to interview Rob Herman. He denied any involvement in the crime. Inspector Herman stated that he was not out and about that night, including between 1 and 2, and that he was home with his family, the report stated. During further questioning, the conversation turned to Rob Herman's younger brother, who had been a traffic patrol sergeant at the time of the fatality. The DCI agent asked whether Todd Herman ever had any vehicle similar to what police were looking for. Stokowski stated Inspector Herman responded no. That September, Stukowski closed his investigation without interviewing Rob Herman's purported alibi witness on the night in question. Stukowski had also decided not to interview Todd Herman. In September 2004, the DCI compiled a 5-page memo with in-depth recommendations to rejuvenate the cold case investigation. The document was given to Bushman. One suggestion was to contact Ken Olson at the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory about sending the tan black paint chips to a special lab in Canada for further analysis. Olson told the DCI there might be a way to narrow the paint to a particular year a manufacturer had used it, along with a particular model. These tan-coloured paint chips from with black primer were recovered by the State Crime Lab from the jacket of the hit-and-run victim, but became insignificant to Manitowoc County's probe back in 1999. With no new leads, you might have to concentrate on searching for a tan vehicle, the DCI recommended. The DCI suggestion was to hold a news conference to announce that a review of the investigation had resulted in new leads. This will generate media attention, which you can use to again ask for the public's help, Stukowski advised. It might make the person responsible nervous enough to make him or her slip up and say something, or it could bother the conscience of a co-conspirator enough to come forward. The DCI also urged Manitowoc County to contact the state, ask the Wisconsin Department of Transportation to give you another list that shows only those vehicles that were sold or scrapped within 6 months of the accident, records showed. The DCI reiterated its concern over the way Bushman and his deputies cleared vehicles in this case, citing a 2002 hit-and-run fatality in Dodge County. In that case, involving a Sorry about that. In that case, involving a volunteer firefighter, the suspect's truck twice passed inspection by investigators who missed the repairs because they did not know what to look for. Trained inspectors from the State Patrol were called in to help by Dodge County, and the vehicle was finally identified. A body shop owner actually assisted in the cover-up, and this nearly allowed the perpetrator to get away with the crime. Stukowski advised Bushman, the suggestions I've included in this letter are time sensitive and might have a low probability of success. However, in my years of experience in working cold cases, there are no shortcuts that can be taken in a case like this. It is unclear to what degree the recommendations were ever followed by Manitowoc County. Okay, so let's just stop sharing there. Of course, I'm reminded of the Deborah Kakach, the district attorney, coroner, who was not liked by the sheriff's department, and Pete Bates talks about an incident involving a person that got run over. Police arrived at the scene. Unfortunately, one of the police cars, the sheriff's cars, ran over the victim a second time. Deborah Kakach said that she would not change her report if it showed as a coroner, if it showed that the being hit the second time by the sheriff's car was the cause of death. She was not going to alter her report, and this was one of the main problems that the sheriff's department had with Deborah Kakach. Anyway, I think that's one of those things that is not chronicled anywhere. I think it is mentioned in the book by John Farrack, but and I say it was something I came across to do with Conrad Pete Bates, who unfortunately is no longer with us. Anyway, I think, as I say, do I need to go on about this? Clearly, the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department are quite happy to treat the rest of the public in a way differently. You know, they do not. I mean, you know, we've even got reports of them. They do assessments of one another. You know, the Sheriff's Department do an in-house assessment of the work of everybody else in the department, and just give them like top grades all the time. It's a bit bizarre. Maybe not. Maybe this is the culture that has evolved, whereby they are just quite happy with. Yeah, obviously, you know, they want to, as the dude would say, CYOA, cover your own ass. Anyway, I say, people, members of the public, they're worthless. They, you know, if they happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, doesn't matter to them. That's, you know, that's it. It's, they need to cover that up. They don't want that getting out. Are they capable of murdering somebody in order to avoid Steve's wrongful conviction suit? Absolutely. I don't think there's any question that the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department are absolutely capable of doing the attack on Teresa. Or if they didn't, they would know who to get to do it for them. Anyway, we'll catch you again soon. Take care. Bye for now.